Good morning. How are you this morning, Tracy?
Great, thank you so much. And you guys?
Good morning.
We are good. I am excited that you have agreed to join Amity Shaw and I in a conversation about all things Hearts of Hope and your history with us and the history of the Rape Crisis Center. So, Tracy, would you start by just giving us a little quick introduction of who you are and what you do in your real job?
Sure. So I'm Tracy Lemaire, and in my real job, I am the state coordinator for the program called Sudden Impact Louisiana, which is the largest teen driving program in the state. I manage the grant and all of the moving parts that are associated with it, and something that I've grown very passionate about because prior to, inclusive of that, I also am the regional coordinator for the Louisiana Passenger Safety Task Force, which educates caregivers on proper use of child restraint. So highway safety initiatives have become a very strong passion for me. I've been involved in that arena since 2005, I think, and with Sudden Impact since 2014. So it's something that I love deeply and care deeply about. Any efforts to help save a child's life or people's lives is what I stand for.
Well, that's what I was just thinking is that it sounds like your whole life's work, including Hearts of Hope and Sudden Impact, is really about just protecting people in our community and in society in education and prevention, which I know I'm grateful for all of the things that you've done with Sudden Impact and child safety seats and the work that's done there. But I know you've been a longtime friend and board member of Hearts of Hope, but I know that you got started way back when as a volunteer. Would you tell us about how you started? It wasn't Hearts of Hope then, was it?
No, it was just the Rape Crisis Center. So, and it's really one of my favorite stories because I am also so deeply ingrained into the programs and the entity that is Hearts of Hope. So when I first moved here in June of '90, I moved here with the intention of obviously working full time, and because I was really now out on my own for the first time. And I thought I was going to be in retail. I thought that was going to be my live stream, even though I had a degree in interior design. But my boyfriend, was my husband and no longer, but he worked offshore when we first moved here. So I was home one night and I was in our little apartment and I was flipping the channels and there was a lady on what used to be, and I think they still have AOC, Acadiana Open Channel. And she was talking about recruiting volunteers for people that wanted to work the crisis line for the Rape Crisis Center and to go out, to the hospitals. And really, if there is such a thing as a bolt of lightning going off over your head, I thought to myself, oh my God, that is exactly what I would love to do. I would love to do that. So I signed up for the class to become a volunteer. And while in there, there was, people from different entities there that would come and speak. So our former Captain, Chief of Police, Jim Kraft, who wasn't chief at the time, but he was involved in the Rape Crisis. And, other people would come in. But this one woman that was there as a MSW ready to graduate program person was a woman named Faith Quirk, and I just was so enamored by her. She was such a gentle soul and really still is, but just everything about her I just wanted to be in that moment. So I thought, well, I want to then let's maybe go back to school and get my MSW, and I want to do this. So I knew right then and there that this is what I wanted to do, or the direction of work I wanted to be in, social service work. And so after I did the volunteer training, I was then a volunteer for 2 full years. And I loved it. It was very exciting. And, I don't mean it in a positive, upbeat way, but the opportunity to, rape is not exciting, obviously, but, just to kind of be out there and knowing that I'm making a difference. And that was exciting and so fulfilling, I guess.
Tracy, what did you do as a volunteer? What all roles did you play? Did you answer the crisis line and go to ERs?
Right, exactly. So I answered the crisis line. You know, you sign up for it, as you know how the program works, to a program. And then I would go out to the hospital and meet with the person, the survivor, along with a police officer. And I actually was at the time, or we as the ER volunteers were in charge of the rape kit and the chain of command. And I've left many hospitals with the rape kit in my hand until I can bring it to where it had to go, in my refrigerator and the whole thing. It just was just like this incredible dynamic of making a difference, and I couldn't get enough of it, I guess is the way to say it. So
Do you have one particular case or instance or phone call or something that you remember that really left an impression on you?
I do. The very first night I went out, and I went with Ellen Deaton, who was the volunteer coordinator at the time, and the person that I had seen on TV. Okay, because you had to go with someone for a while. And it was the very first time I got to go, and it occurred to me that I didn't think that the woman was telling the truth, and that was an incredible pill to swallow, because I firmly believe in believing everyone what they say, but something about it I just knew wasn't right, and it wasn't. I mean, I was right in my thought process, but I had a very hard time coming to terms with that, because we don't want people to make this stuff up. We don't want people to, you know, say it happened when it didn't happen, because it takes away from helping the people that really it did happen to and that do need the help. So that one stood out for me very strongly. I don't really remember. Well, I do. I'm sorry. We did have a patient who had, I'm off the top of my head, and I'm not saying the right terminology right now, but multiple personality disorder. And she would call the line, and it was very taxing, because she was in so much pain mentally and had really suffered a tremendous amount of abuse that was very believable, because she was coming in also, you know, to meet with the counselor. So she was a real person, and she had real issues that she had to cope with. So her is one that I will never forget. But to move forward, after I had been a volunteer for 2 years, I then had the opportunity to take Ellen's position full-time to work for the agency. So I then was the volunteer coordinator, where I trained all the people to be volunteers. And then I was also the first person that people saw for intake, to assess them and to find out where they need to go as far as level of, what's the word I'm looking for? How soon they needed to be seen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so one case there that I will never forget was a young boy that was 9 years old, and he had molested a younger sibling or cousin, whatever it was. I'm sorry, I don't remember. And when I asked him why this happened, he said to me, and as if he's sitting in front of me, I could still hear him say it. He said to me, because it happened to me and I wanted to know what it felt like to do it to somebody else. And that just still stays with me and makes my heart break to think. And then I've heard horrific stories coming from adult women of things that they had suffered and were still going through, either additional rapes as they grew older after being molested as young children, or you know, one woman was still sleeping with her father, which was very hard to kind of process, you know, because intellectually we think, well, then just don't go over there, but it's not that simple to walk away from that kind of relationship. That's so
I love that you're giving us really like this frontline view. And I'm over here taking a couple of notes, so I want to backtrack just a tad. You know, Tracy, you bring up something that I think is worth talking about, and that is false reporting. It has been my experience, and I've been with Hearts of Hope now for 10 years, that is really not the case. You know, that, you know, 10 out of 10 times people are suffering with some sort of trauma, whether that's sexual violence or mental illness, like you also spoke about. But, you know, it's our job here at Hearts of Hope to believe, to believe survivors. So when we show up at that ER, we really are there because we believe survivors, and we are absolutely there to walk them through the process. But I know that there's a lot of people that oftentimes think that, oh, she's making it up, or, oh, it didn't really happen, or, you know, you can't be raped, you know, that sort of language. So I think it's important that people who are watching this interview really know that that is not the norm.
Right.
You know, all of the other cases that you went out on, I bet those were all true.
Oh, yeah, that was
And,
the
you know,
only one,
reports.
and I did it
Yeah.
for 4 years. I would be going out to the hospital. That literally was
Right.
the only one. And like I said, I had such a hard time processing it for myself to even think. I didn't even say it out loud, but to even just think to myself, oh my God, I don't think she's telling the truth. You know, that I couldn't even say it out loud to myself, but it turned out I was correct, but it was very hard because I do also believe that everyone should be believed, whether they're
Yeah.
3 years old or whether they're 63 years old. I mean, everyone needs
Well,
to
and
be believed.
I love that that's part of your volunteer story, that that in spite of your own reservations and your own sort of hunch saying something doesn't sound right about this, that you continued to provide that,
Oh, yeah.
that you didn't let anybody know that you were
Right.
that way, and that you did exactly what we call volunteers to do, which is to believe, to support, to provide resources, and to be empathetic. So it really speaks to your professionalism and your heart as an advocate for survivors.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cases, if something does happen where the story doesn't quite match up, there are other sort of trauma factors at play in most
Right.
cases. So, so I'm just grateful to you. And I love to hear, since I work so closely with volunteers, I love to hear your story of your initial onboarding as a volunteer, what drew you in, how it is that you got connected, and how that connection has just resonated into your whole like trajectory of your life.
Yeah, it really did, because I didn't come here to go into work in this line of work, but I'm telling you, like, really, and it still gets me so excited to say it, because once I put my foot through that door, I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't think to do this when I was 18 or 20, you know, just starting
Right?
out in my, you know, upper education, because I feel like I've missed out. I mean, I've done a lot in 30 years, but I feel like I've missed out in the years, you know, before that of a difference that I could have made. So I then was with the agency as a full-time employer for 2 years. So that was where the 4 years came from, as a volunteer. At this point, Faith Quirk had moved on to become the director of the agency. So I stayed with her as she, you know, went up through the ranks of moving up, and it really was an absolute pleasure working with her and for her. I've been very fortunate that I think really my last, well, her to start, and then my last two for sure have female bosses, supervisors, and the difference that they make in the world in my eyes also is staggering. I mean, I couldn't have been more grateful to work for Faith and then Dr. Stefanski, and now my current supervisor, in the work that I do, because I'm very strong in female empowerment, obviously, and you know, I feel very lucky. I wish everyone had the opportunity to work for one of the three of them, because they really learned so much, and I've grown so much from them. But I stopped working when I was pregnant with my first daughter, because it was getting to be very difficult, because the way it was at the time is that the volunteer coordinator, which I was on 24-hour call. So if there was a volunteer already out, then the volunteer coordinator is the one that had to go if there was a second call out.
Yes.
And being 6 and 7 months pregnant, I was like, oh, I can't do this. I just didn't want to be in that environment anymore, you know, and it's so emotionally draining when you come home from a rape exam. You know, it's very hard to kind of decompress from that for a while, especially when it's a child, and, you know, putting them through what they go through in order to make a case so that it doesn't happen again. So I stopped, and then at that point is when I joined the board of directors, because I wasn't going to go out without a fight. And
we're never letting you go.
Right, you're in it for the long haul.
So since December of 1996, and I say that because I remember bringing Meredith as a baby to one of the board meetings, I've been a board member. Yeah. So, and here I am still.
Yeah, I mean, I know we couldn't be more grateful for the heart and the dedication that you've put into these last 30 30 years?
30 years. I joined, yeah. I moved here in June of 90, so whatever the
1990.
next class was that I saw that there was, yeah.
Right. Well,
So,
I
yeah.
just love what you've shared with us today because you really are, the heart and soul and the boots on the ground of a very important movement in Acadiana and here in our community. And I just love hearing the history. It never gets old to me. And, we stand on the shoulders, right? So
Yeah.
couldn't be more grateful to
Absolutely.
people like Faith Quirk, who just had a vision and a heart. And, Hearts of Hope has been blessed to have a lot of executive directors and board members who have really just dug in and done the hard work. And, as we go through this 19 days of No More, we're going to update people on how the rape kits happen now and what that looks like now. And I promise you that nobody's taken them home. The chain of custody has
I mean, it's crazy. It's
really
crazy.
changed. You guys used to actually put the kits together.
Yeah.
It was a whole assembly line. I know that people used to show up for their phone shifts at the basement of the old charity hospital to answer those phones. Yep. So Amity and I plan on visiting with some other volunteers who are now turned board members to talk about that journey. But we wanted you to be the first to sort of lay the groundwork, and we just want to thank you for 30 years of beautiful things.
Well,
We've come a
you.
long way, baby.
I know. I am humbled and honored.
I like to think so. I will tell you though, without it makes it sound like I'm putting too much out there, but like I am so passionate about it, and I love being there. And obviously for life reasons, work reasons, I can't make every meeting, but I'm always there in spirit, I feel. But more so, like, I'm grateful to you guys for not necessarily counting on me to be the one that brings the money in, because I'm not the money person per se, but I will be at, I think in 30 years I have been at all but maybe 5 events that I couldn't be at, for my time, but I will give you my time anytime that it's needed as I'm able to. I mean,
And look, I have a poster
right,
for you, Tracy.
Okay.
Yes.
No more excuses.
And your time is valuable and needed and appreciated. And, maybe this interview will turn you into a fundraiser too. So we're going to post this video, and we are going to ask you all to join Tracy and her legacy and make a donation to Hearts of Hope during our No More campaign. So thank you so much, Tracy, for taking some time with us this morning.
Thank you
so much. We really appreciate you.
I really appreciate you guys too. Keep up the great work. We're making a huge difference in our community. We really are.
Absolutely.